ended up tying for first place in the district tournament as a freshman and qualifying to nationals and making the first cut, bringing home an award as a freshman at the national tournament. The next year, he qualified in Lincoln Douglas debate, but understandably, instead of going to nationals, he went to the 3-week Missouri Scholars Program. Last year, he qualified in 2 events, dramatic interpretation, another war-related piece courtesy of me. We did World War I his freshman year, we did the Nuremberg trials his junior year, but he also qualified with our then president, team president, Caitlin Walker, and she qualified in extemp, but they could only go in 1 event, so they went in public forum debate last year. And this year, Riley has again qualified to the national tournament, so he's a 4-time qualifier, and he also qualified in Congress besides program oral interp, but you can only go in 1. And so he'll be going back to the national tournament in Dallas in the middle of June, along with Uma, and performing the same piece that he'll be doing in Dallas. He's going to be presenting that for you here tonight. So this is a compilation of all 3 forms of literature: poetry, prose, and drama. And I'll let Riley's introduction give you a sense of what it's all about. So here's Riley.
And also, for any of you who are wondering, yes, it is required to be performed from a binder. Fancy term for this, if you want the lingo, it's called a black book, but that's beside the point. So that's why I have this, and that's why Uma and Abby will not have one of these. It's just the nature of the event. Okay. Take 2 local boys with hearts removed and place them in your bar. Add 1 pitcher of beer and bring your mixture slowly to a boil. Now, toss in 1 gay college kid, sweet and on the small side, and add more alcohol, and stir your mixture together. Now, remove from your bar and add equal amounts of rage, hatred, ignorance, and, of course, fear. Place your heated mixture into the cab of a truck. Wait for things to go sour. It won't take long. When Barack Obama was elected president, racism ended. When women earned the right to vote, sexism was destroyed. And when gay marriage was legalized, homophobia ceased to exist. No, none of this is true. While it is the case that we as a society have made great strides towards equality over the past decades, we must also understand we still have far to go. With this school year marking the 20th anniversary of the brutal murder of Matthew Shepard in Laramie, Wyoming, for the simple fact that he was gay, it provides for us the perfect opportunity to reflect first on how far we've come, and also how far we still have to go. Interweaving his story with the story of too many others like him, through the poetry of October Morning by Leslie Newman, the play, the Laramie Project by Moises Kaufman, and articles from National Geographic by Christina Nunes. We will see that we as a society must continually ask ourselves the question, are we there yet? A program. Because we aren't. We never actually called him Matthew. Most of the time we just called him Choo Choo. And when I think of Matthew, I always think of his brilliant smile. I mean, he'd just walk into a room and he'd be like, and he'd smile at everyone and he made you feel so good inside. And down at the coffee shop where I worked, he always had to have the in seat, so he could sit there and talk to me while I was working. And if someone was sitting in his spot, well, he'd just plop down right next to him and stare at them until they moved. And he'd claim a spot and talk to me. Then again, Matthew did always have that political side to him, so he ended up going off to Laramie for school. The upstairs lounge. New Orleans, 1973. 32 people died when the dance floor of the gay nightclub was intentionally set on fire. While a patron who had been kicked out earlier in the night was the prime suspect, the crime was never solved. It was instead met with jokes on the radio, silence from politicians, and a refusal from churches to hold services for the dead. All right, look, I'll tell you how it was. It was 10 o'clock. I clock in at the Fireside Bar, the last place Matthew was ever seen in public. What can I tell you about Matthew? Well, if I had 100 patrons in a bar like him, well, it would be the best damn behaved bar I'd ever been in. And then it was around, 11:45 that Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson walked in through that door, and they later told me that they went off to the bathroom and decided they'd pretend to be gay so they could get him out in their truck and rob him. I was the last person that Matthew ever talked to at the Fireside. I mean, I saw him as he was walking out, and I stopped him, and he's like, "Hey, Shadow, da-da-da," and I was like, "Hey, man, you already leaving? The night is young." And he's like, "Yeah, man, and this and that." And yeah, I saw them two guys he was with. You know, they just kind of stood off to the side, getting a little nervous, a little anxious to leave, if you know what I mean. And I stood and I talked to Matt for 10 minutes or so. And eventually I saw him walk off with the two guys. They got in the front of the black truck they were driving. You know, the two sitting on the sides, Matt in the middle. I mean, I didn't think much of it at the time. The Other Side Lounge, Atlanta, 1997. The patio of the lesbian bar was hit with a nail bomb and 5 were killed. The bomber, Eric Rudolph, told the police later that he had meant to send a message to Washington for their continued support of the homosexual agenda. Well, I took off on my bicycle at around 5 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday. I was going to go up to the top of Cactus Canyon and turn around, but dang it, something in me just told me to keep on going. So I was going downhill, pedaling faster and faster and faster, and all of a sudden, hit a pebble in the middle of the road. I tumble over my handlebars, scrape my knee. I stand up and dust myself off, and I pick up my bicycle and I see something. Now, you see, I just thought it was a dummy at first, because, I mean, Halloween was coming up, and then I saw the hair. When I saw the hair, I knew it was a human being. So I ran. The Backstreet Cafe, Roanoke, Virginia, 2000. A man opened fire on the bar, killing 1, wounding 5 others. The gunman told the police he was on a mission to kill gay people. My name's Officer Reggie Flutie, and I was the first one on the scene. When I got there, I saw what appeared to be a young man's leg, so I got out of my vehicle and I rushed over, and that's where I found him. I later learned that this young man's name is Matthew Shepard. He had dry blood all over him. Dry blood underneath him, dry blood on his face, and he was barely breathing. The only place he didn't have any blood on him was where it looked like he'd been crying down his face in the middle of the night. And I had to ask myself, this was someone's child. The DIY Club, Yerevan, Armenia, 2012. The gay-friendly bar was firebombed and spray-painted with swastikas in the same month. I continued to get these threats, saying they would burn me and kill me, and so on. The owner, Armin Oganezova, told the Institute of War and Peace Reporting at the time, I was working in the emergency room the night Matthew Shepard was brought in. And I don't think any of us that were working that night will ever forget it. Because you don't see those kind of injuries around here. Because you expect those kind of injuries from a truck headed downhill at 80 miles per hour in a head-on collision. You don't expect those kind of injuries from someone doing that to another human being. Central Station, Moscow, 2014. The Central Station, a large gay-friendly nightclub, was forced to close after a string of attacks. It has fortunately since later reopened with bulletproof windows. You hear something in your sleep. You reach for your alarm clock and see it's 2 or 3 or 5 in the morning. Realize your alarm clock isn't ringing. Realize your phone is. You feel the dread rush in your stomach like water because good news never comes at 2 or 3 or 5 in the morning. And you fumble for your phone and you open it and you say, hello. And you hear an unfamiliar voice ask if you're sitting down. You sit up, you almost throw up, and you take a breath. You take another one, and hear the unfamiliar voice say the word accident. Say the word incident. Try to understand this. Hang up, throw some things into a bag as you try to understand that someone you love very, very much is very, very hurt. And you fly, you run, you walk, you crawl to the hospital where your loved one lies sedated and hooked to a machine. You cry, you sob, you wail, you pray. But all you can do is take hold of their swollen hand, squeeze gently, and let go.